Okay, so Nick Houston here for Gotham Sound and Communications. I'm here with Ben from Shure. And Ben, we just watched a video about the new Shure ADX5. Congratulations.
Thanks so much. I'm really excited to be here, really excited to talk about this product.
Awesome. So give me a quick overview of just what the ADX5 is. And I think this is going to require a little bit of a deeper dive into Axient, but let's talk about the ADX5 first.
Absolutely. So the ADX5 is ADX5D is a two-channel digital wireless microphone receiver designed for portable and location sound use. This is quite a cool thing. We've been working on this for quite a bit with a lot of input from our beta and alpha testers. And basically, in a nutshell, we've taken our dual ADX receiver or AD dual receiver and shrunk it down into this little tiny slot-in compatible chassis. So everything that you can expect in the dual receiver, just about everything, is in here. And then we also added ShowLink, which is our two-way remote control.
Got it. Okay. So yeah, so let's talk a little bit about, so that's a slot receiver, obviously. So that would be compatible with other slot receivers like the Sound Devices SL series, et cetera. So, but tell me a little bit about the features of Axient, and we'll definitely talk about ShowLink.
Absolutely. So Axient Digital, for those unfamiliar, is our top-of-the-line flagship digital wireless system with the best sound, no compromises, and it has a ton of features that you can choose to use or not. One of the best features, or kind of the most talked about features, is the ShowLink, which is our name for our remote control. ShowLink is a remote control that operates over the 2.4 or Zigbee frequency range. And normally we have transmitters that have an X in the part number, like the ADX1M, the little micro I have here, this baby one. Mm-hmm. And then we have a ShowLink access point that's usually like in this format, which is PoE powered, part of your wireless workbench rack, for full-size rack receivers. Well, we've taken all of this huge device and everything else, and we shrunk it down to put it inside of the receiver here. What this means is that once you put this pack on the Talent, you don't have to get it again. It basically, you can remote control and change frequencies or any of the other parameters that you want without having to go harass them and get the pack off of them. So extremely cool, very, very good for anybody that's interested in episodic or location sound. And as you know, getting the pack on the Talent is one challenge, and then getting it back to make a change is another one altogether.
So you don't actually need a secondary controller or another antenna. That antenna is actually built into the receiver.
Very good. Yeah. So there are actually two different modes that you can operate the receiver in. I'm glad you brought this up. The first one is a direct mode. So of course you have a two-channel receiver and you have two transmitters that are linked to this receiver. Whatever changes I make on here, I can reciprocate on the transmitter. So if I change a frequency, for example, it'll jump. Another thing, just to put it out there, if you're doing your scan ahead of time, you get to your location, your transmitters are off, you turn on this, do a scan, the transmitters were previously linked. As soon as you fire up the transmitters, they wake up and they say, oh, and you got to go to the new frequency. So yeah, you got the built-in remote control with this little nub here, this little antenna, which is really cool. And then the second one, we call that direct mode. The second mode is network mode. And if you already have an existing infrastructure of Axient Digital, you can use the ADX5D and its associated transmitters to communicate with a full-size access point and therefore control full-size rack devices and portable devices, all from wireless workbench or however else you may do it. A common scenario for this is maybe you're in the studio shooting in the morning, and you're doing some stuff in-house, and then the director is saying, hey, we're going outside this afternoon on location. You could set up all your portable things or even take your portable stuff out of the rack and then program it and go out and do your thing and come back, and it's all on the same network. So two different modes, direct and network for ShowLink.
Got it. So if let's say you've got 2 or 3 of these ADX5 receivers in a bag, let's say, would each ADX5 connect with the 2 transmitters, or would you set up one kind of network that's talking to all the transmitters at once and receivers?
That's a great question. So yes, if you do have a bag and you have 2 or 4, however many of these, each one of these would be associated in direct mode to the respective receiver. So you would basically, how it would work currently is you fire up your receiver, do a scan, pair your first two transmitters to that receiver, leave them on, do the next one, and so forth and so forth. And then they're all two-channel individual systems. Not to get confusing, but you can pair up to 8 transmitters per channel for each channel of a receiver, but you can only use one at a time. And you can flip between them very quickly.
Got it. Okay. So let's talk a little bit besides ShowLink. Let's talk a little bit about some of the other benefits of Axient. So obviously it's Axient Digital. So that's in the name. Why don't you tell us a little bit about, the sound quality and what digital brings to this kind of system?
Absolutely. So Axient Digital, just to kind of throw it back a little bit, even before this product was released, and Gotham, I know, has seen adoption of the full-size rack receivers in the location sound episodic film market. And, unparalleled sound quality comes top of the mind. Second, and another feature that we don't discuss nearly enough is the fact that these transmitters across the board for Axient Digital don't have a typical gain control, or some manufacturers call it sensitivity. So basically what that means is I can plug a lav into here and just forget about it. I don't have to worry about the level. If it's too hot, if it's too quiet, I put the lav or the mic on here and just give it to the talent and don't worry about it. There's such a high amount of headroom that this is auto ranging and it has no problems, or you're not really going to clip it, which is great. Because one of the big things as a location sound recorder is you're like, hey, did I get my levels right? Did I set it too hot? Did I not? This takes all the guesswork out of that. So yeah, great digital quality, great range, ease of use. There's so many other features, encryption if you want, and the list goes on and on. We have so many different things that the system can do to mitigate interference. There's even automatic interference detection and avoidance, which we call, which is, if you get into trouble with a frequency, you can switch, or you can broadcast on 2 frequencies at the same time. There's so many little tools that Axient Digital is capable of, but you don't need to do any of those just to enjoy the great sound quality and the ease of use. I mean, you grab this pack, you grab the ADX5D, pair it up, and you basically know what you're doing. You can concentrate on making sure the audio sounds good instead of fiddling with a bunch of menus and things like that.
So when you say that, because that's a really cool feature that you don't have to set the gain at all. So basically, as long as you're not, under or over stimulating. No, as long as you're not putting too many dBs into the microphone head and overloading the microphone, you're not going to overload the transmitter.
Right. In fact, if you'd overload the capsule of the microphone before you would overload the transmitter. I mean, the only real way you would overload the transmitter is if you had a direct line-in signal that was super hot for some reason. There's only one volume control or gain control in the whole system, and that exists at the receiver. So if you did find you were getting into trouble and clipping, too hot of a level out to the next gain stage, then you would just turn it down at the receiver and it's all good. You don't really have to mess with the transmitter. In fact, once you make a pairing between the transmitter and the receiver, they're linked until you break that link. And therefore, I basically have to make sure there's a fresh battery in this and a mic plugged in and put it on the talent. I don't have to mess with the menus or do any other business to make this work.
Got it. Okay. So I just want to briefly mention to people watching on Facebook and online that if you do have any questions, feel free to put them on the chat. We will get them to Ben because I'm sure that you have many more questions than I will ever think of. So just to throw that out there. So, the ADX5, obviously the ADX4 has been around for a while. I know we've been working with it on a couple of larger shows like In the Heights, which is out right now, and West Side Story, which is also out right now. And that was kind of at least our first foray into using that on feature films. How long has Axient Digital been around, and how long have you been developing the portable receiver?
Well, that's a great question. Axient Digital has been around, or we released it at NAB in 2017, in April of 2017. So the system has been around for a few years. It's quite mature. It's still our top of the line flagship. Shure has always, since way back in the day, been involved with portable things. If you remember the FP mixers, FP31, FP33, and so forth. We had the UR5 and some other portables and things. So the natural progression and the question that us market dev and sales were asked quite a bit is, hey, when you're coming out with a portable receiver? That was like the last piece of the puzzle, because, we came out with AD, then we came out with the ADX and the micro body pack and all that, and the ShowLink, which is great. And then, of course, we came out with the 83 plug-on transmitter, which is awesome. And then everybody's like, the last piece of the puzzle is this portable. You mentioned, Nick, about the use of the quads, and for those movies and some top top rated films. I think part of that was due to the fact that you can get those quads with a DC powering option, right? So normally we'd have those quads in a broadcast facility, for example, the power AC and then a redundant DC backup in case one failed. And then the light bulb came on, somebody just said, hey, why don't we just power it with DC using like a Power Star or whatever battery system in a rack? Like, that's genius. And we didn't expect that to take off, and it took off like wildfire even without this product out now. So from what I've gathered and talking to a lot of the users of Axient Digital in this type of situation, is that we're probably going to see a lot of dual use. I mean, you can see things like there's a rack solutions from third parties available where you can put multiple Axient Digitals together in one rack space, or like you mentioned, sound devices and other types of things where you can really consolidate your rack and make it totally portable. Or that scenario I talked about earlier, where in the morning you're in the studio and doing stuff inside, and I'm going to go out in the afternoon. Okay, I'm going to unslot this out of my rack, put it in my bag, and then I'm saving money by using the same receiver for both.
Right, and just to hold that third-party rack adapter up, that's a soundbag dashboard.
Yep.
So with that, and obviously we've been talking about doing some modifications to that, but you could fit 8 receivers in a single rack unit.
That's right. Yeah, there's. I'm just using the basic when you get the DB25 or the TA3 plate to go here, or the DB25 spacer, and then you can put whatever plate you want on the back. We didn't talk about that yet, but we do offer 3 different plates for it. We have a TA3F on the back side, and then of course we have our DB25 or super slot Sony Ekagami. There's the visual right there. And then, the 15 pin for the Sony, of course. So we pretty much have all the bases covered, and the TA3 outputs both analog and AES3, of course, and you can battery power it. We've got a whole bunch of accessories that make it work for you.
Right. Yeah, I saw that there's an option to power it off of AA batteries and an option for powering it off of Sony L series.
Right. Yeah, I'm not sure about the AA battery sled. Maybe I don't know if I've seen that one, but I do have the NP sled here, which basically is just a chassis and uses your standard NP style batteries. And then this would slide on here if you're going to use it in a portable application, like top of a DSLR, top of a 4K mirrorless or something like that. You'd have arguably the highest end digital wireless system you can buy for that system with this. So.
Yeah, and as backup and things like that as well. I know there are a lot of recorders that will have L series batteries on board, so not a bad backup at all.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about the transmitter options, because I saw there were some things that flashed by there. Probably the most appealing thing, or one of the most appealing thing besides ShowLink, is that ADX1M.
That's right. A lot of the talent, like A-list talent that don't even know what this is, are like, hey, I put it on and like, this is the one I want because it's super small, of course. And this, the ADX1M, is our top of the line flagship crown jewel of a transmitter. You might notice that there's no antenna on it, and that's on purpose because the antenna is internal. It's got a recessed connector here for LEMO microphones, super small, about 7.5 hour battery life, water resistant, doesn't get hot. Rounded edges, so it's very comfortable to wear, especially if you're going to use it with like a neoprene band or waistband or something where you don't have the ability to use the belt clip, which is removable. And then of course ADX. So remote control, like I was saying before, you really never once you pair this, you don't have to go in the menu and touch anything unless you want to. We're psyched about that. We do have the ADX1 as well, which is more of a full function body pack, a little bit better battery life, a little bit better range. And then we have our AD1, which is our body pack transmitter, with just the same size as the ULXD, that kind of chassis with the AA battery operation.
And the plug-on you just showed as well.
That's right. Yeah, the plug-on, the 83. This is really exciting. This guy, both phantom power, XLR, just basically throw it on here and you can pair it up, and completely compatible with the whole ecosystem. Really good for plant mics, shotgun microphones, that type of stuff.
Boom poles. Yeah. So with Axient Digital, it's a digital system. So one of the other appealing things that I don't think we touched on is a complete lack of intermod, which you would find with other older analog systems.
That's right. Yeah, one of the really cool things about digital is that we're actually using less output power and higher quality components to make the system work. So as you mentioned, by design, the systems don't really create intermod, or the intermods that they create are typically below the noise floor. So you can do really crazy things you couldn't do with analog, like even spacing. You know, the worst thing you can do with analog is put them all like 1 meg apart. With the digital, it doesn't really matter as long as the channel is clear and you're at least 200 kilohertz apart in regular mode for HD and standard mode. So it makes your coordination a breeze. You basically just find an open channel, make sure they're spaced far enough apart. It can do that with a couple button presses, of course, and just distribute it to your whole system. Pretty cool.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about the functionality of the ADX5. So, you know, programming. I did have a chance to put hands on it, and I will say that, you know, like with most things, there's a little bit of getting used to, but it's reasonably intuitive. And you know, after 5 minutes, you can hack your way through it, and probably after using it for half a day, maybe an hour, it becomes reasonably intuitive.
Yeah, Nick.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, just tell me a little bit about the features that are on it. Like, is it a scanner? Is there grouping? You know, what kind of things could we expect to see on the ADX5?
Sure. I actually have it right over here. I'm not going to go through every feature, but if there's something you want to see, let me know. So let's take a look here. This is the ADX5D, and basically your total, 2-channel receiver with you. Nothing's paired up to it now. You've got your 4-button operation. If you're familiar with Axient Digital, you know about that already. So it should feel very natural if you ever used an Axient product. Basically, I have that micro body pack I've been showing everybody here. So I will take this and just kind of, pair it to channel 1. So you have 3 menus: your device config, which is like your global, your channel 1, channel 2. I'm going to do channel 1 because that's what I'm working with. And right at the top is sync. I'll hit that. And then through the magic of infrared, it can sync. Now, of course, the first time you get out of the backs, it'll say, this is the wrong range because this comes in G53, but G57 is our wideband range for the US. And when I do that, I'm all set. And I can try doing the sync one more time, and it should be no problem here. So, and of course, once I do the sync, like I was mentioning before, it's a success. You can see the RF meter is now filling up on the left, and I got the link, the 2 blue lights, which are typical with a Shure. And just for kicks, I'm going to turn on the tone generator at the pack, and this will let us see that there's some levels coming through. And then you can see there the green, and now it's yellow. Your audio levels coming through, and of course that's super important when you're recording. Make sure you got the audio going, and all the stuff you normally want to see on the front panel is there. One real cool thing I like to demonstrate real quick, especially for those not familiar with the ShowLink, is that if I make a change on the frequency, for example, it will automatically change the receiver. So right now at 470, 175, and that's what the pack is set as well. I will quickly just change this to an arbitrary number, like, I don't know, up in the 496 or something. Hit OK. And as soon as it goes, you see the flash for just 1/10 of a second, and the transmitter is now on that new frequency. In fact, like I mentioned before, if this transmitter was off and I made that change and I woke the transmitter back up, like I got to the job or the location, it would automatically just do its thing. So really easy to use. I think, like you mentioned, Nick, once you put your hands on it for about 5 minutes, you're like, this is totally easy. I'm ready to go. Maybe a few questions about some of the advanced features, or how to do some of the real technical stuff, but it's just works right out of the box with minimal fuss, allow you to concentrate on your job. Really cool.
And tell me, you mentioned G57 as the wideband range. Just tell me what those frequencies are so that we have it on record.
Well, absolutely. So G57 goes from all the usable spectrum in the UHF in the US. So you have 470 up to 616. There's G57 and then G57 plus. G57 is contiguous and compatible with G57 plus from 470 to 608. So basically all the frequencies up to the radio astronomy band. And then it goes, there's the radio astronomy band, and there's a little gap band between 614, 616. That's G57 plus, and you can use that in some instances. That 2 megahertz really isn't a big deal, but basically one range to rule them all. So if you buy this in the US or for US use, G57 plus does 470 up to 616 with a gap for the radio astronomy band. And you don't have to worry about which range, G, J, H, for the smaller systems, this does it everything. So super amount of flexibility and a high channel count. We didn't mention that, but digital is super efficient. We can get 17 channels in one 6 megahertz TV station on regular standard mode, and we can do 47 on one in HD mode, which is our high density mode. So it's quite cool.
Cool. And yeah, tell me just a little bit about high density mode. That's probably not something for a feature film set, but just so we know.
Absolutely. So high density mode is one of the two modes. You have standard 17 channels per 6 meg, or high density 47 per 6 megahertz. Basically what we're doing is we're compacting the frequencies a little closer together, and you can use tighter spacing. This is at the expense of a little bit of sound quality. So it's not as high resolution as its regular standard mode. But when you need that channel count in a very dense RF environment, that could be useful. I think for the most part, like you mentioned, it probably won't be used by most episodic and location sound users because they're after the best sound quality. So why compromise? And 17 channels and 6 meg is still quite a bit, and quite a bit more than analog.
Yeah. And do you have a sense of what the range is, let's say on that tiny pack or on the full size pack? Because I know they are slightly different in terms of output power.
Absolutely. Great question. So, as far as the packs go, they vary in output power from anywhere from 20 maximum at this level up to 40 from our ADX1. So, of course, the 40 milliwatt, you can expect much better range than the 20. And if you're not familiar with digital, and when we're talking about digital output power at 20 or 40, that is not analogous to analog output power. You're actually going to get a lot more bang for your buck. Like at 10 milliwatts, I would put this up against a 30 or 50 milliwatt analog and be in the same ballpark. You get a lot more range for your investment in RF output power. It's not really about how much RF output power you have. It's about making sure you're catching the right digital signal and decoding it. And that's the magic of digital. So yeah, some of the packs, if you're looking for range, the ones with the external antenna like the ADX1 will perform better than the micro. But the micro itself, all of them, I mean, there's no hard or fast rule. We typically say, around 300 feet. A lot of times it's a lot farther than that. And then another question that comes up quite a bit is like, are we losing or sacrificing anything by using a portable receiver versus a full-size rig? Fair question. From the alpha and beta testing that we've done in our users, I know even at Gotham, I have heard that it's been about maybe 95% of the range of a typical Axient digital rack unit. So it's quite impressive that you're not really giving up a lot of stuff by shrinking to a super small form factor. In fact, you're gaining portability and a lot more usage, built-in ShowLink and all that cool stuff.
Mm-hmm. Got it. I'm trying to think. So in terms of like a use case scenario, so you could, as you said, you could have a bunch of these on a cart and pop them back and forth between a bag. You could have the larger units on a cart and then have this kind of be the portable option. Would you ever see a scenario where you would use this as a camera link?
Absolutely, yeah. A camera link, obviously designed to be slotted into a camera. We also see some esoteric uses, like if you're live sound, you want a delay tower or a speaker for monitoring somewhere way far away. I can put some audio into an Axient digital transmitter and then catch it with this and put it out a speaker on a stick or something like that. So there are a lot of cool things you can do now with a battery powered option, especially fully portable, fully battery, no AC around. This is the ticket.
Got it. And what is the battery life if you're running it on one of those smaller L series batteries? Do you know that?
That's a great question. I don't have those exact figures, to be honest, and it varies because there are so many different sizes of those NP batteries. So we'll have to get that information as it becomes available. What I can tell you is that it is a dual sled design, so that you do have two spots for batteries, and you can hot swap them. When one gets low, you can put another one in and keep going that way if you're using this with this type of battery. I think from just my experience in talking with the Gotham clientele, I think a lot of them will be using your kind of standard, those blue batteries for location sound that go in the bag, or some other Hirose 4-pin source from a BDS or something. So.
And do you have a sense of what the what the current draw is? Because I know the larger ones, they'll do like 4 amps max. Obviously, that's maximum. But do you have a sense of what these smaller ones run on?
I think it's a lot less than that. I'm using like a really tiny power supply. It's in the specs. I have to dig up the manual. Again, okay. I'm sorry, I don't know exactly, but
that's okay.
I'm using like a super tiny power supply now at 12 volts to power this thing. And it's, It's great. It works fine. So yeah, runtime should be extended versus a full blown rack. There's not a lot of conversions going on, and I think that's the way it should be.
Got it. And is there, so you mentioned that it can coordinate with wireless designer. So that would require, how would that work?
Good question. So yeah, and you would use this in network mode. So basically, wireless workbench, maybe you have a rack of Axient Digital, ULXT, whatever the case may be, a laptop computer or a computer on your cart, one of these access points in ADX610, and possibly a spectrum manager, which is our frequency server to serve out frequencies in case of interference. Basically, this device becomes another device that this access point picks up. And then also the devices that are paired to this kind of hop from the transmitter to the portable and then hop to this. So it sounds more complicated than it is. It's really cool and eye-opening when you have it all paired up with your rack of whatever Shure wireless workbench, and then this. You can do things that you would normally do on a network, but wirelessly. For example, if I use the channel scan here or the group scan to find frequencies for my stuff, it'll do its scan. It'll say deploy frequencies, yes. And as soon as I hit the button on here, it'll deploy across not only just this, but the whole rack wirelessly over ShowLink. Or vice versa. If you're on Workbench, you can treat this as another device and say deploy frequencies, and it'll do the whole thing across all of the network devices. That would be our network mode, and maybe useful for those that are coming already from the wireless workbench world or the cart world that have full-blown Axient digital rigs. This is the way to do it. If you're not using that, of course, then you would just be using the direct mode, which is more limited but more self-contained. You don't have to haul around an access point because it's all built into the receiver.
Got it. So let me give you just a quick case study. So I used to work on a tattoo show. I won't name names, but
Right.
We filmed mostly in a tattoo shop, but we always had a to-go bag that in case, something popped off, we would pick up the bag and run out and chase after people. But the way that we coordinated the frequencies between the main rig and the bag, if we ever had to make a change, was, by walkie, saying, so-and-so is now on this frequency. With this, it sounds like if you've got ShowLink associated with, let's say the larger rack receivers or whatever receivers you have, you can just make the change on the talent transmitter and, both receivers that are receiving it at any given time, and it's just there.
That's correct. Yeah, it's just there. And even better than that, we have something called device ID. So on here, not just the channel name, like whatever channel one, but you can name each device individually for whatever name you want, and that will appear on your receiver and in wireless workbench. So when you're receiving that signal, you can say, oh, that's John or Paul or George or Ringo, so it works well. So
you could change just if you're manually changing between frequencies, like if you want to change transmitters, you could actually change to whichever Beatle you want if they're
exactly
and know that that's who it is.
Yep, and it'll come right up as you're flipping through those frequencies, or if you have a preset list, it will use that and find those frequencies and show that name right there. Useful as for multiple cameras capturing the same talent, even if they're not recording, because you want to hear what's going on, of course, and you can quickly go through those. Or other situations where you have one transmitter capturing in multiple places, maybe for reliability or redundancy use. We definitely could see that.
Yeah, for sure. Well, that's exactly that case study. So that's really that's pretty cool. So I'll just say one more time because I think we're getting pretty close to the end. I think we've covered it. But we're going to show some pictures here from a mixer that Gotham customer Drew Cunyon, who I believe did he do which one did he do? He did one of the big musicals that's out right now.
He Mank in the Heights.
Yeah. There you go. So we've got some pictures that we'll show you from that, and I'll just say that if you have any questions or comments, please leave them in the chat, and we'll get Ben to talk about them. But let's show those pictures, and Ben, you can narrate what we're seeing. I see.
Oh yes. So yeah, we have the full-blown Axient digital cart there, and we see a laptop, of course. This looks like a Aton Kansar there, and some Axient digital DC powered, as well as a AD610 in the rack for AXE610. Yep, so that's cool. Spectrum manager, a couple receivers, and Yeah. So the workflow basically here is getting up on set, firing up Workbench, doing a scan, and then possibly not using Workbench, throughout the whole thing once everything's set up, unless you have a need to. I believe Drew just basically likes to get his thing set up unless there's a problem with frequencies, then address that as it needs. In this scenario here, we're basically using automatic frequency detection and avoidance. So interference detection and avoidance. Basically, if there's a problem, it would automatically change frequencies. And that did happen during some shoots, I remember. And the biggest compliment was the fact that I didn't even notice anything happen until after the fact. And it changed my frequencies for me. And I'm like, well, that's the way it's supposed to be. And just, again, one less thing to worry about. You can worry about focusing on audio quality and capturing the good moment. So.
Yeah, I did. Drew did tell me that story as well, that he was on set and filming in the middle of a take when they did the FCC repack, or at least changed one of the TV stations from the higher blocks into one of the lower blocks. And he said, all the lights lit up red, but the channels changed magically, and he didn't hear a thing.
That's right.
Yeah,
it's awesome. Yeah, but it's one of the features you can implement across Axient Digital. It's if you want to use it, it's there. Again, you don't have to, but it's really cool if you do.
Yeah. And so the smaller receivers, obviously you're using either analog or digital or super slot. And the larger receivers have Dante, which is what Drew is taking advantage of there.
That's right. That's one kind of feature that the portable doesn't have. I guess based on real estate, there is not a Dante output at this time. There are solutions for that, as Gotham could tell you, or we could tell you. We have some boxes that convert analog into Dante, and there are some that do AES3 to Dante. So if that's a part of your workflow and you need that, absolutely. Depending on the situation, of course.
Yeah. Got it. Okay. So let's talk a little bit. Any other features that I feel like I missed? I think we covered a lot of it, or most of it, or all of it, I hope.
I think so. Yeah. I mean, in a nutshell, we've taken the dual, we shrunk it down into this little portable slot-in compatible receiver with all your super slot compatibility and everything you could think of, and we added ShowLink to it. So quite a cool usage case. It's a great little product and really rounds out the Axient Digital portfolio.
Yeah. So it's basically like you could use it. You could use it in a bag. You could use it on a cart. You could use it in conjunction with the larger stuff. Or if you're, just starting out, there's no reason not to just use it just 2 channels as is and go.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So let's just talk a little bit about pricing and availability, because I know it's brandy new. And usually brand new things are in demand, and people want to know how they can buy them and all that stuff. So I know pricing is comparable to some of the other competitors out there, the high end stuff. I won't name names, but do you have that off the top of your head, or should I look it up real quick?
If you have it, that would be great. I just want to make sure I say the right number, but it's extremely palatable. In fact, a lot of users already have gave feedback on how surprised, how affordable they thought it was. So, yes, I want to make sure I say the right number. So
me too. Yeah, no, I know it. And it's like,
maybe somebody put that in the chat for us. Right now, the availability is that we are shipping. Obviously, today is the first day we're announcing it. Mm-hmm. It is a very hot product, so there is basically a high demand for it. We are taking orders. Gotham is taking orders, so please get your orders in or inquire about that to get yourself in the queue to make sure you can get some. Yep. But yeah, it's happening. It's like basically we said this summer, and it's summer, so let's do it.
Yeah, I think the if I remember correctly, the ADX5 I believe is 2,500, and then the back plate would be an additional 175 or 200 depending on which one you get. Want to make sure I'm correct on that, but in order to place an order at the moment, it's only available for either by a phone call or an email. So you would have to call in and say, I want this, and then we will get you a pre-order. And as soon as they come in, we'll get them out to you. And yeah, I'm right on that. 2,500 is the receiver, and then the backplate is 175 or is 200 for the TA3. And I think the super slot is 175.
That you hit it right on the head. That's right. 175 for the DB ones, and TA3 is 200, and 2,500 for the the unit itself. So I'd say it's pretty fair, pretty comparable to existing portable receivers, and it has all of that Axient digital technology, ShowLink. It's going to be awesome. I can't wait to see how people use it in the field. That's the best part about it. We make products and we say it's designed for this use, this and that, but to see the rigs and the bags and all the cool ways that you use Shure equipment really is exciting. And I can't wait to see it.
Great. Well, we've got some questions now. So first question is, is the latency in analog and AES output the same, or is it different? And actually, is there a latency in the transmission? Would be an add-on to that.
That's a great question. So yeah, it's the same latency across the board. The outputs are time aligned, and there's really no difference, or almost a negligible measurable difference between the output latency of AES versus analog. It's 1.9 milliseconds from end to end. So we think it's extremely fair and extremely competitive in the digital realm, and almost non-noticeable at all for that type of latency for the digital. This applies to across the board with Axient Digital, I should say, not just this product.
Got it. Okay. Do you have a sense of when the manuals and tech specs will be uploaded to the Shure Tech portal?
Great question. I know our marketing team is all over it. They're really busy today with the launch and all the pre-launch events, all these events that are going on today. So hopefully later today, if not very soon. I check back. The manual is done. I do know there's hard copies I have from units here, so it's a finalized product. But as far as getting up on the web, we'll have to talk to marketing about that. Hopefully soon. Maybe
got it. Okay. Or you could just scan in each page individual and stitch it together for us.
Hold it up to the camera. Yeah.
There you go. That'll work. So here's another one. How would the WWB connect to the ADX5D in a bag? So first of all, just say what the WWB is.
That's wireless workbench. So how would you connect that to the bag? So typically you would need to get this on the same network as the AD610 access point. So this has to be part of your computer, your wireless workbench. Light this up with PoE, and then you would use the network mode that we have on the receiver to make it part of that ecosystem. The technical details is basically you have a unique key, like a alphanumeric key that you can put in on both sides, and then they line up and say this is my network, and this device gets adopted as part of that. Then Workbench can see everything and control it right from Workbench.
Got it. And so there's a USB-C port on the receiver.
Great question. Yeah.
What is that used for, and can it be used to power the receiver?
So yeah, yes and no. So yes, there is a USB port here, and I'll just take this off for now. So you can see there's a headphone jack and a USB-C. The USB-C is there not for powering, but for firmware updates. And this is how you would flash the firmware for the receiver, as well as transmitter firmware, which gets stored on here. And then the other part we didn't mention is that there's a 3.5 millimeter output here, which is extremely useful. It's a headphone output. It can be a monitoring output. It can output analog, channel 1, channel 2, a sum of both. It can also output AES3. So a lot of those maybe cameras that can't take the 2 channels in the slot, and you want to get that second channel in there, I think you know what I'm talking about, can work with that, no problem.
So, and also just for those, rather than bringing a bag or a cart with you, if you're going to a talent dressing room, you could use that L series battery sled, have a very portable receiver, and just listen and make sure you're not getting any clothing rustle right out of the headphone jack on the receiver.
That's right. Yeah, it's another headphone output or auxiliary output. Like we were talking about redundancy, you could have it go to a secondary recorder or something. But yes, you can use it in a multitude of ways.
Got it. So more questions. What features are lost when you're using the AD1 transmitter versus the ADX1?
Great question. So yeah, AD versus ADX, in a nutshell, the X in the part number means that it has ShowLink, and there may be some size differences and things of that nature, but ADX means that the ShowLink isn't part of the transmitter. So AD1, AD2, the AD ones without the X cannot be remote controlled over the ShowLink technology. So that's the main differences between those products. There are some subtle differences, like I mentioned, rechargeable batteries that are included or not, and size differences. ADXs are typically smaller. So that's the main thing. You don't get ShowLink with AD.
Got it. Okay. More questions. Are the sound devices 8 series scanning and frequency allocations supported when using the SL2?
That's a great question. I think that's something that we are working on with sound devices. As far as it being ready right now, I'm not sure if I can comment confidently on that. I know it's something that's being explored, and There are lots of questions popping up about that, I know. But it is, as far as control and interactivity, there should be something in there with the sound devices. I just don't know if it's fully baked at this time, to be honest.
Okay, so possibly future firmware updates, either from Shure or from Sound Devices, or both.
Yeah, I haven't tried it myself yet. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So, so another question / comment. Did I understand correctly that in the event of suddenly RF getting jammed, the system changes RF? So that's only when you're using it with the AXT600. Is that correct?
That's right. So if it's part of a larger ecosystem, it can change frequencies, but it's not going to do it by itself. It's not going to. The unit itself requires like a frequency server, like the full rack size spectrum manager that we sell, and that houses your backup frequencies and that sort of thing. So out of the box, just the unit itself will not do that in the bag with nothing else attached to it.
Got it. And somebody else noticed another 4-pin connector on the back of the standalone plate next to the 2-pin connector. You want to tell us what's going on the back?
Sharp eyes. Yes. So that right there, this 4-pin connector is mainly for the power. So if you can see there, this matches up with our battery sled, and that provides connectivity
I
for
see.
the battery.
So the one all the way to the left goes with a battery sled.
That's right. And this battery sled has the mating connectors there. I think it's a proprietary thing for sure. As of right now, the only accessory that plugs into it is the battery sled. Who knows, in the future, there may be others.
Got it. Okay. Let's see. I think so. That's all the questions there. Alan is asking if multiple receivers can be paired to multiple transmitters. I think we said yes to that, but
we can. Yes. The only caveat is that you can't have encryption on at the same time because there's only one private key and registration. So yes, but you can do that, no problem.
So you can have 2 bag mixers tuned into the same transmitter.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So reality show style, that would work fine.
Exactly.
Got it. Okay. And then let's I think that's all the questions we've got from here. But let's talk a little bit about the future. Any chance of a 4-channel receiver in the same form factor? And what else are you working on that you can't tell us about, but will tell us about because you're such a great guy?
Well, my first inclination would be just buy 2 and you're good to go. Other than that, I can comment and I can say that Shure is always working on new and exciting things. And, we'd love to show them to you when they're ready. And I know a lot of you out there have been involved in our kind of beta and alpha testing, and we appreciate that. So yeah, I can't comment on anything at this time, but you never know. We're always got that new and exciting things in the hopper. So.
Okay, great. Well, I think that's all the time we've got for now. So Ben from Shure, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us about the ADX5 and Axient. And, if you want to watch this video again, you can check us out on gothamsound.tv, on our YouTube channel, on Facebook, on Instagram, all the places. And if you have any questions, please email us at info@gothamsound.com. Ben, we'll see you soon.
Nice talking with you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.